Roll Tide, everyone, and welcome to Tide TV This Week, brought to you by Thompson Tractor. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by Kira Goldstein. And Kira, roll Tide.
Roll Tide, Roger. I can't believe it was our last home game in Bryant-Denny Stadium.
It certainly was a special day for the seniors before Saturday's Iron Bowl matchup inside Bryant-Denny Stadium, as the Crimson Tide honored their seniors in a ceremony on the field before kickoff. In all, 17 players were honored, including 10 who have started at some point this year.
It would be a great day for the seniors as they routed their in-state rival in the final home game of the season. Alabama opened the scoring on a wide-open pass. This pass was from Mack Jones to, who else? Devontae Smith. 66 yards to the house, and Alabama was on the board. Way to get the game going, Roger.
Big time.
7-0. And then in the second quarter, Mack Jones with the play-action fake. He threw it right over the top of the Auburn defense for the touchdown. That pass was 7 yards to John Mechie, and it was 14-0. After a Tigers field goal, the Tide struck again. Mack Jones, again with the play-action fake to Najee Harris, and this time he drops it right into the waiting hands of Jaleel Billingsley as he crosses the goal line for the score. That would make it 21-3, Crimson Tide. With 20 seconds left in the half, Auburn did try to get some offense going as they had the ball at the Alabama 38, but Malachi Moore played it perfectly as he jumped in front of the Auburn receiver for the interception. Alabama was able to take that 21-3 lead into the locker room at halftime.
A couple of seniors got things going for the Tide in the second half. Mack Jones, he was able to stand in the pocket, took the hit, delivered the perfect slant pass to Devontae Smith, and he did the rest, splitting a couple of Auburn defenders as he raced down the sideline for the touchdown. 58 yards, and it's 28-6. After a missed Auburn field goal, it was Najee Harris's turn. Harris ran right up the gut of that Auburn defense, found the seam, turned on the afterburners. 39 yards for Harris, and the Tide is rolling 35-6. Alabama added one more score in the fourth. Mack Jones again to John Mechie. This one good for 24 yards, 42-6 Alabama. Auburn added a late touchdown, but didn't matter as the Tide dominated the Tigers in Bryant-Denny 42-13.
Unfortunately, Coach Saban wasn't able to be on the sidelines as head coach of the Crimson Tide due to testing positive for COVID-19, but he's okay, and he met with the media after the game on a Zoom call from his home.
I think our coaching staff did a marvelous job today. They played the situations. We had a good plan. They stayed with the plan. They executed the plan. Sark did a nice job of managing things. I sat here and felt a little helpless that I could see things and, yell at things and listen to Miss Terry cheer downstairs. It's a little different, but still feels good to win. So I'm happy for our fans who support us. I know this is a big game for a lot of the people who support us, and it's just a great win for us.
Mack Jones finished 18 of 26 for 302 yards with 5 touchdown passes, tying Tua Tagovailoa for the most touchdown passes in a single Iron Bowl. That performance earned Mack SEC Co-Offensive Player of the Week honors for the 4th time this season.
Certainly impressive for the Crimson Tide, and Alabama remains number 1 in both the Associated Press and the coaches polls this week. And the Tide remain number 1 in the college football playoff rankings as well.
Yeah, in fact, there was not a whole lot of change in the poll. Actually, there's no change in the top 7. The Georgia Bulldogs moved up 1 spot to number 8 to give the SEC 4 of the top 8 teams.
What a game it was on Saturday inside Bryant-Denny for the 85th edition of the Iron Bowl. Coming up next, we'll give you an all-access look inside the Tide's dominating win over their in-state rival.
TideTV This Week presented by Thompson Tractor, the exclusive provider of Caterpillar heavy equipment and genuine Cat parts for Alabama and Northwest Florida. Visit ThompsonTractor.com for more information. The University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
Thanksgiving, Senior Day, a dominating win over Auburn. I'd have to say that last week was a pretty good week.
Yeah, one of the best of the year, and anytime you can dominate your in-state rival, I'd say it's a good week. Let's take an all-access look back at the 85th edition of the Iron Bowl inside Bryant-Denny Stadium, brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
It's the 2020 Iron Bowl, the Crimson Tide and the Auburn Tigers.
I think it's pretty simple. Our players, you just got to go out and make plays. You got to go show it, put it on tape when it's the biggest game of the season.
On top of everything else, obviously Alabama without Coach Nick Saban on the scene here. Final home game for the group of seniors.
But this senior day is something special. These guys will remember it for the rest of your life.
And they swing it out to Williams. He'll make the grab, and then he is instantly put down by Patrick Surtain Jr.
Jones, wide open. Devontae Smith will cruise. Alabama touchdown.
He was so wide open, he could have stopped and read War and Peace, and they still wouldn't have been able to catch up with him.
Good job, Smitty. Good tell.
Now the fake and the throw. Mack across the middle. Touchdown, Alabama, John Mechie.
Good job, Messi. Let's go.
Mack stands in, throws to Billingsley. Touchdown, Alabama.
Nobody but the tight end going against the safety. A fun touchdown throw.
Hicks throws, and it is intercepted by Alabama.
Malachi Moore picks it off.
Malachi read it the whole time, jumped it, just what he's been doing all season long.
You like that? You like that? Tell put some respect on your name. Yeah. Tell put some respect on your name. Respect on your name, boy. Yeah, boy.
Just want to get back on rhythm here if you're Mack Jones in the offense.
Jones got it to Devontae Smith. Open field. One man to beat. You can forget about it. Devontae Smith. Touchdown, Alabama. First and 10. Najee Harris. Najee Harris will take it. Touchdown, Alabama.
And then the cut behind the blocks. That's what does it. Beautiful block. Landon Dickerson helps to his right and then fits on the middle linebacker. Helps his guard, fits on the linebacker, and Najee just feels it into the end zone.
As he looks that way, throws that way. Corner. Got it. Mechie, touchdown.
Touchdown, Alabama.
I've said this a lot for this guy, but you can't throw the ball any better than this.
I love it, man. I love it, man.
And he throws a deep ball as well as anybody.
And this defense for Alabama has been just as good. I mean, scoring all those points they have, a little more than 4 games now. They've given up 26 total points this defense.
And Nix wants to throw a screen, and he threw it right to the defense. Brian Branch inside the 10-yard line with another interception.
The Crimson Tide faithful turning up the noise meter. Alabama wins it 42-13.
Last one. We're not on top. 8-0. Know you like that. Undefeated. 8-0.
Yeah, we out.
Came in here. Much
Victorious.
love.
Victorious is
Much
always.
love to BDS.
You know what I'm saying, always last ride in the BDS, but it's a good ride.
That's one for the books, boys. Nice senior day. Got the dub. On to the next one.
Peace out. Young Nas out.
TideTV This Week, presented by Thompson Tractor, the exclusive provider of Caterpillar heavy equipment and genuine cat parts for Alabama and Northwest Florida. Visit ThompsonTractor.com for more information. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide, the University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Welcome back to TideTV This Week, brought to you by Thompson Tractor. If you were as disappointed as Roger and I were that the Alabama-LSU game was canceled a few weeks ago, well, now you have your chance to watch the Tide take on the Tigers this weekend.
Yes, the Southeastern Conference announced a revised schedule on Sunday that included postponing the Arkansas game from this week. Instead of rescheduling Alabama and LSU for this weekend, we'll have more on that matchup coming up between Alabama and LSU. Our Christopher England joins us now. Christopher?
To preview this week's matchup between #1 Alabama and the LSU Tigers, I'm joined by the most decorated offensive lineman in Alabama history and current ESPN analyst Barrett Jones. Barrett, it's great to see you.
What's up, Chris? How we doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing well, thank you. Just kind of when I was preparing for this game, one thing I noticed, LSU has only played 2 home games, and we're in December. That's just kind of crazy to me. It's kind of hard to believe, but I guess that's just the way things are with, you know, what we're dealing with right now. You're on the call this weekend for ESPN Radio. This isn't the normal Alabama-LSU matchup we've grown accustomed to and the one that you played in a couple years ago. What are your initial thoughts on this game?
Well, it certainly is a weird year, as we all know, and I think it's a year where home matchups matter a lot less than most years, because obviously there's not really a whole lot of a fan advantage. I have one thing that I noticed the other day that I was thinking to myself that hadn't been commented on much is that I've hardly seen any teams doing a silent count, because you don't need it really anywhere. And even in Death Valley, where you would certainly need some kind of really loud clap or a silent count or something, because that is still, to me, the loudest place in college football. When it's rocking, especially at night. So what those Cajuns do during the day, but they get rowdy at night, and it's awesome.
Well, I think it would be safe to say their offense is sort of in shambles right now. They've lost several of their top receivers due to opting out and injury. They don't have their starting quarterback in Miles Brennan, and the Tigers are tied for 110th nationally in rushing. With the way this Alabama defense has improved over the last several games, this matchup seems to favor the Tide pretty heavily, doesn't it?
Well, it's definitely been a struggle for them. And look, starting out the year, in some ways, the script is kind of flipped for LSU, because starting out the year, they scored a bunch of points. That really wasn't the issue. Their offense looked fine, and they put up some big numbers. They just couldn't guard anybody. Terrace Marshall, you mentioned, just opted out, which that's a huge loss. He's a really good player. Jamar Chase, the defending Biletnikoff winner, opted out before the season started. So that obviously was a loss. And, Miles Brennan really was playing decent football when he was in there. He didn't get a whole lot of attention because obviously they lost some games. But that was mostly because their defense gave up just a ton of points and a ton of yards. And so, yeah, they're searching right now. And you're right, they don't have really a good run game to lean on. I think a lot of people around their program thought they'd have a really solid rushing game this year with Ty Davis-Price and some of those other guys. And that just really hadn't come to fruition with that offensive line. So it's been a struggle, and I would imagine it will continue to be a struggle against, like you said, an Alabama defense that's really come a long way.
Well, for the LSU defense, they haven't fared much better. They're allowing 30 points per game, and they're next to last in the SEC in pass defense. Auburn just lit them up a couple of weeks ago for 48 points. Looks like another good matchup for the Tide in this one as well, doesn't it?
Well, I will say that I think that this side of the ball, I mentioned the flip script earlier, is actually continued to get better throughout the season. And I think they're a far cry from the LSU defense we've seen in the past, but they still have some good players on that side of the ball. They're very young over there. Obviously, Derek Stingley Jr. Is still, I think, is one of the best corners, if not the best corner in the country. So he's a good player. Yeah, I do think they're coming off, in my opinion, their best game against Texas A&M. I think they only gave up 20 points. So they really looked a lot better, and the offense obviously was just atrocious for that one. But look, the reality is you're not going to beat Alabama this year unless you're ready to score somewhere in the 40s. And because they're going to put points up on anybody. They would put some points up on the 85 Bears. So they have the best offense in college football to me. I don't think it's that close, honestly, just from how balanced they are. So they're going to score no matter who they play, and you better be ready to score with them. That's the only chance you have.
Thank you, Barrett. Kickoff in Baton Rouge is scheduled for 7 o'clock on Saturday night on CBS. You can listen to Barrett's call of the game on ESPN Radio. Stay with us. We'll have more Tide TV this week coming up next.
Welcome back. Let's now take a look at our Crimson Tide and the NFL Players of the Week, brought to you by BBVA.
Tennessee Titans running back Derrick Henry rushed for 178 yards and 3 touchdowns in their 45-26 win against the Indianapolis Colts. Henry is just the 4th player in NFL history with 3 games of at least 175 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns in their first 5 seasons.
That's why he's the king. And even though the Cardinals lost to the Patriots 20-17, Dre Kirkpatrick made some big plays. Kirkpatrick finished with an interception, a pass breakup, and 3 tackles in the game. That's his 3rd interception of the season.
Very impressive. And the Alabama men's and women's basketball teams also tipped off their season last Wednesday. The men started with a victory over Jacksonville State. 81-57 would be the final score.
Then it was off to the Maui Invitational being played in Asheville, North Carolina this year. The men dropped their opening game of the tournament to Stanford 82-64.
In Game 2 on Tuesday, the Crimson Tide took on the UNLV Running Rebels. Alabama started the game knocking down 4 consecutive shots from beyond the arc, but the score was tied at 38 at the half. With the score even at 53 all, the Crimson Tide used an 8-0 run to take a 61-53 lead with 12 minutes remaining in the game and never looked back. Alabama connected on a season-best 15 three-pointers as the Tide blew past UNLV 86-74. Alabama was led by John Petty Jr.'s 22 points on 7 of 12 shooting from the field and 6 of 10 from beyond the arc. He also added a game-high 6 assists.
On Wednesday, the Tide took on the 2-1 Providence Friars. After trailing 8-0 to open the game, Alabama scored 17 of the next 20 points to take the lead for good. The Crimson Tide connected on 8 of 12 three-pointers in the second half and out-rebounded the Friars 48-28. The Tide led by as many as 23 as Alabama ended the Maui Invitational with 2 consecutive victories by defeating Providence 88-71.
Alabama returns to action on Saturday, December 12th as the Tide will take part in the Holiday Hoopsgiving event in Atlanta as they take on the Clemson Tigers.
The Alabama women's basketball team began their season last Wednesday with a win as well. The women defeated Samford 83-68 in Coleman Coliseum, going for their second win of the season. The Tide took on Houston this past Sunday. Alabama's trio of seniors, Araya Copeland, Jordan Lewis, and Jasmine Walker, combined for 65 points and 26 rebounds. Walker led the team in scoring for the second consecutive game, finishing with a career-high 25 points, while Copeland recorded Alabama's first double-double of the season with 18 points and 14 rebounds. Lewis chipped in 20 points, going for a perfect 9 for 9 from the free throw line. In all, Alabama knocked down 32 of 38 shots from the charity stripe as the Tide won big, 88-66 over the Cougars.
Also playing on Wednesday, the women took on USC Upstate here at home. The Tide led 22-17 after the first and 44-32 at the half, but really turned it on in the second half. Over that final 20 minutes, Alabama doubled up USC Upstate 54-27 as the Tide easily defeated the Spartans 98-59, 98 points.
Impressive. Stay with us. We'll have our plays and players of the week coming up next.
Play action fake, then he pumps, throws long, Devontae wide open, he is so wide open, it's unbelievable, touchdown Alabama! Next looks, throws far side, intercepted Alabama, Malachi Moore picks it off, the give, Najee, big hole, right side, he takes off, and he's in for a touchdown! Devontae Smith accelerates down the right side, turns on the afterburners. He is in. Touchdown, Alabama. Intercepted Alabama. A quick throw. Brian Branch pulls it down.
Welcome back. Those are our ATI Plays of the Week. Now let's take a look at our Players of the Week, brought to you by Payless Drugs.
Mack Jones had a record day in the Tide's 42-13 win over Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Jones finished with 302 yards through the air with 5 touchdowns, tying Tua Tagovailoa for the most touchdown passes in Iron Bowl history. Jones was also named the SEC Co-Offensive Player of the Week and the Davey O'Brien National Quarterback of the Week.
Jasmine Walker led the Crimson Tide in scoring in wins over Samford and Houston. Walker had 22 in the season-opening win over Samford and led the Tide with a career-high 25 points along with 8 rebounds in the victory over Houston. Walker also added 20 points in a victory over USC Upstate.
Those are our Payless Drugs Players of the Week.
Thanks for watching Tide TV this week. We hope you had another great week. Roll Tide.
See you next week. Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield IMG College.